Hello, welcome to ARC 13131, and we are still in week 3, and we're going to talk about assignment number 8, which is a crumpled paper from life. So whenever, of course, I've said this before, whenever we're doing something from life, it's something right there in front of you that you set up to draw. It's not from imagination or some other image. Now, you could take a photo of it. I want you to take photos of all your models or have a image that you can send me from a model you worked from so that I can compare your drawing with your original model that you were looking at to draw. So from what you were working from to draw your drawing, I want to see that so that you can just send that initially. Sometimes if you completed it and it was really awesome, I'm not going to ask any questions about it. But a lot of the time, I'm questioning, well, was there more contrast? Was the proportions correct? Sometimes, if it looks a little funny to me, or it looks off, or it looks like it could use more contrast and shading for more shape, then I will ask for that photo so that I can compare what you were looking at with it and then point out where to look for the elements that I'm talking about to make it a better drawing. And then you work on it more for a better grade. Okay. And so make sure you do take a picture of the hand in plastic. The other, I mentioned it in text along with the video before you watch the videos. I put that on there, but maybe some of you missed that. But from now on, anyway, if you haven't done it in the past, take a photo of this before you start, because you may want to work on it later, and the light's going to change. The light source may change if you're using a window light coming through or something. Now, so you want to take a photo of it and have that available to send to me, to submit. You should submit it on the same assignment page, okay? Um, so do that. And also you want to remember to set up a single light source, nothing straight on, but you want to create shadow areas, like I said before many times. You want to create a cast shadow on the table or the surface it's on, okay? And you want all that. I'm going to show you examples, and they're student drawings that show all that and exhibit all the elements I'm talking about. Okay, so let's get into it right now. And oops, deleted that one. Okay, I can find it. There's going to be a video on this too. There's actually a video of somebody doing this, so you can see how they're mapping it out and doing it. So basically, you want to make a little gesture drawing of, the edges and maybe parts of the contours here very lightly, like I mentioned very many times, because you want to be able to erase that. You don't want lines because there's no lines. You could, so you're gonna take the paper like printing paper. You don't want lines on the paper either. You don't want writing on it. You want a clean, clear piece of white paper and crumple it up and then maybe pull it out slightly if it's too tight and set it on a surface. Okay? Trouble with my. Okay, let's look at this. Um, because there's no lines all around this thing, bordering it. There's no lines on the paper like that. It's just that one shade meets the other shade, and then it perceives an edge, because that edge turned over to that edge and went the other direction, right? All these edges are kind of taking a different direction, catching the light differently, and that's what you're going to shade in. It's a great practice for shading. Now, these are partially rounded surfaces, but some of them are very abrupt. and very sudden change in tone. So that's the difference. You're now expanding to more ways to shade on different surfaces, different objects. And they have different shapes. You're going to get that shape accomplished on your two-dimensional plane. You want a three-dimensional appearance. Now you only get that by using your shading and creating a lot of contrast in lights and darks. That's why you want that exhibited in your light source when you set up your light source. This is coming from the right side, obviously. There's a lot of shadow areas. The cast shadow is a little darker than any of the dark shaded on the paper. So they separate themselves from each other. When you have a shade that is very similar to another shade, the birds are going crazy. Uh, they want to do this too. Then it's gonna not separate it. They're gonna blend too much. So you really want one being darker than the other, whichever way you're gonna work that. Over here, of course, the background is a lot lighter than a lot of the areas, but not right here. So they actually did darken it up right here at the edges. You see that? It's not completely white right there. Right there, they darkened it up slightly so that all this would have a separation from the background. Okay, and that's how you get that done. Shade it a little darker, and it's okay to do. You can change your drawing slightly from what you're looking at to manipulate it a little and emphasize different things so that you can separate and show, make your drawing even stronger than what your image you're looking at is. That's a very possible thing to do. So here's another one. I think they possibly erased out tone in different areas right in here, or they just left them void to show the edges of the paper. There's no lines, there's no border lines. It's all shading that ends and meets another shade. And that's reality. That's what your paper is going to exhibit to you. It's a shade that meets another shade that meets another shade, all like a little puzzle or a kind of a mapping. And they all change at different points. And so you're going to find where the light and darks are and put them in. And you may have to darken up the darkest areas a little more so you get all those levels of tone. You really want all those levels of tone, 5 to 7. If you're looking at your drawing and you're seeing, count them up. How many different levels of tone do you have? If you only have like 3 or 4, you're looking for 5 to 7. And 7's better than 5, really. So keep doing that. Keep looking for them and keep putting them in. So if you have something very light, like this area and that area and that area, and then you have the very dark areas and everything in between. There's like 5 or more levels here. It's going to create a great shape for you. Now this is a really good one. I don't know how they got it standing up like that, but I like the drawing, so however maybe they fudged it slightly, but the paper looks pretty real to something that was crumpled up and maybe pulled out. You don't have to crumple them very tight. Don't crumple them really tight like a rock. Crumple them in and maybe pull it slightly out so there's dips and folds that are showing like this. I think this is kind of more interesting than the prior images that I showed you. That one's a little better. It almost looks like a cabbage or something, but that looks almost like a rock. I think this is more interesting to have parts kind of fanning out and stuff. But you see all the lights and darks? Very dark in different areas, very light in other areas, and then a lot of in midtones. Midtone, midtone, midtone that are all a little bit lighter or darker than the other. Okay? That's what you're looking for. This one does have lines, and I'm not all that crazy about it, but it is kind of, it works. It has some kind of shading lines, which I border on that because it's probably not exactly accurate, but I'll work with this, but certainly don't just draw border lines and then shade partially little areas. And I think the shading works with the line areas that are kind of thicker than not. They're not quite like writing lines, like when you're writing letters or numbers, they're shading lines. So I think it works better that way because they're not exactly perfect lines. Okay. So there's a cube. We don't want a cube. Um, and that's really what you're looking for. All right. Let me go back and get that other piece of crumpled paper if I can find it. This one. That's a pretty good one. See, there's no lines bordering anything. There's a little bit of a shading line right here, a really dark area, but maybe it was actually there and this person put it in. But you have the dark areas. You have a cast shadow on the table. You have the dips and folds. Light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. And then this changes this way. Light, dark, light. You see how that works? That's what you're looking for. Really study it. If you have never done this before, you're starting to be aware that there's lights and darks and everything. And even though, the paper and it being white and everything and you get in shadows is going to be more like graphite tones because they're grays and, white and black and, different midtones of gray. So you don't have color to work with. When you're working with colored things, you have to perceive what that color is going to look like in graphite, light and dark, light and dark. Okay, so you're training your eye to see these things and to create an image on two-dimensional plane that's going to look 3D and have shape and not look flat. You're using all this contrast and shading to do it. Okay, so watch the video as well. And also, let's go back to this and show that the number 12, number 12? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not going to show drawing your own eyes in the mirror. That's next week. What number 9 is kind of an interesting, again, kind of a fun experiment. You're gonna draw from life something, like put an object in front of you, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is, but draw it and shade it as you will because you've learned how to shade. So I want shading. So draw it. Maybe make a gesture drawing it first if you need to. Draw it. Don't use lines to border it because it's probably not there in real life. Just use your shading. And then on the same paper if you want, draw it with your eyes closed. And don't cheat. It doesn't matter how it comes out. It doesn't have to be perfect at all. It can be a total mess. But it's drawing with your eyes closed to remember what you were actually looking at. And excuse me. And see if your hand will actually draw what you were looking at for a while you were drawing that drawing right here, drawing from life. That's the first drawing. There's two. That's the first drawing. Second drawing is now shut your eyes and either get a new piece of paper or have left a space next to it, right next to it. Draw it on one side and draw the other one on the other side with your eyes totally closed. Don't cheat because it doesn't matter. You're going to want to cheat because, oh, we got to make this perfect for the assignment. No, you don't. It's just going to be the experiment. In fact, if it is too perfect, I'm going to wonder if you looked at if you opened your eyes, right? Because it's like, hey, how did you do that so perfectly? That's crazy. That's amazing. So it's got to have some imperfections, I'm sure, but it's interesting to see what you will draw with your eyes closed after you've been looking at something for so long. Okay. It's kind of an experiment in imagination because you're using something in your mind to draw with. Now you're really emphasizing that idea. You're looking at something that you were drawing for a long time, so it's in your memory, it's in your imagination, and because you're influenced by what you looked, imagination is what you were looking at or learned. But so now you're going to draw it with your eyes closed. Okay? Use the same paper if you want, or use double paper. That's fine. But don't cheat and draw two drawings here. Okay? One actually in front of you of an object or something, not from imagination, and one with your eyes closed. All right, we'll leave it at that, and then I'll talk to you next week. Any questions, let me know. If you haven't completed assignments by your first attempt anyway, by the deadlines, please do, because that keeps you from falling too far behind. You don't want to fall behind in this class. It'll be miserable to catch up, because I'm still looking for the effort of at least 2 hours of drawing. And I'll know when you're not doing it, unless you're a really good artist and you really have great skills already and you can draw stuff fast. Then okay, fine. But if I'm looking for that effort and I don't see it, then I'm going to mark down to a C for your first attempt. Unless it's totally off the mark and you didn't, draw anything like what I was asking for, then we're gonna we're gonna start with a 0 probably. Okay, so at least draw your first attempt trying to get to the idea pretty well, your best of your ability, and then you're going to probably get a C on that. The thing is, if you don't work on anything after I asked you to, with my suggestions and examples, if you didn't work on anything and you're getting C's, you have to do every assignment in this class to get a C, and that's the passing grade. Now, if you're getting B's and A's, maybe you can miss 1 or 2 or 3. Like A's, you can probably miss about 3 assignments and still get an A because, 90 to 100% is within the A range. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. All right, and then try to keep up and don't fall behind, and we'll talk with you next week.